Hey, I want to tell you about Moto brand. Moto brand was founded during the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic when the sport that we live for was taken from so many of us, whether it's cycling or moto. Waking up on a Saturday morning knowing that your local track was closed, there would be no Supercross, and for many of us that we couldn't even hit our favorite local riding spot or trail with our crew. We are forced to be reminded of how much the sport of moto and cycling truly means to us. Moto brand represents a collection of individuals that not only ride, but live to ride. It's what we think of at all times of the day, and sometimes at a detriment to your relationship with your significant other. It's for those that look at their motorcycle or their bicycle as part of their identity. Maybe it's the way that you bond with your son or your daughter or your spouse. Perhaps it's your way to blow off stress of your day job, or even, hey, it is what it is, maybe even it's your marriage. This sport is more than just a sport. For many of us, it's a way of life. It's what keeps us ticking. It's what keeps us living. Moto brand was created for a purpose, to be more than just a shirt that you can throw on in the morning, but these designs represent who you are and what you stand for. So I encourage you to head over to the motobrand.com, check out our collection. We have a pedal collection and we have a throttle collection, and there are more designs to come that stand for something. So head over to motobrand.com and we'll see you there.
I want to tell you about something special that Racerx is doing right now. If you go to racerxonline.com/moto marketing, be sure to use our link. You can subscribe and get the Nationals box. This is pretty exciting. Check this out. They have the 2020 Pro Motocross Souvenir Program, print plus digital Racerx magazine subscription, so you get the traditional magazine as well as right to your phone or your computer. You get the Marty Smith cover poster, 2020 Lucas Oil Pro Motocross sticker, and the 2020 Lucas Oil Pro Motocross t-shirt, and a pretty sweet little collector's national box that it comes in, all for the $50 subscription. You get all that. Pretty sweet. Be sure to go to racerxonline.com/moto marketing and get all the swag.
Hey, big shout out to our friends at FMF. Little D and the guys are always doing some pretty exciting things, not just with the performance products, but man, they've got the coolest apparel in the game, and I want to give you guys an opportunity to get that at a little bit of a discount. If you go to FMF and pick up any gear you'd like, hats, shirts, whatever it is, upon checkout, if you enter the code MMP30, MMP30, you can get 30% off. So MMP30 at checkout and get 30% off your order on FMF apparel.
Welcome to the Moto Marketing Podcast, presented by Racerx, the podcast for moto industry professionals, entrepreneurs, and riders. If you want to grow your brand and business in today's digital-first world, you have to know how to turn a stranger into a fan, turn a like into a customer. You have to know how to turn attention into dollars. This podcast is dedicated to keeping you in the know on real marketing tactics that work in the moto world so that you grow your business and help grow the sport. Get ready to learn from the very same marketing experts trusted by Racerx, Lucas Oil Pro Motocross, GNCC, and NBC Sports. They'll help you navigate the world of digital marketing for your moto brand. This is the Moto Marketing Podcast. Presented by Racerx.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Nesler. Today, we have a guy that really needs no introduction, but we're going to give him one anyways. We have got the king of podcasting in Moto, the king of content, in my opinion anyways. We've got Steve Matthes from PulpMX on the show with us today. Steve, welcome to the show, man. I'm excited to dive into this with you.
Thanks for having me, Luke. Appreciate it. And sorry for the reschedules and this and that, but we finally made it happen. So cool.
Hey, it's all good. I started early with you because I figured with your schedule and everything that's going on in the world, it might take a little while to make it happen. So yeah. I have a lot of people that reach out on Instagram throwing ideas and suggestions of people that they'd like to hear from. You're somebody that has we've gotten a good bit of response, and people just curious about hearing more about the back end of Pulp and how you build it, and going from a mechanic to whether you want to accept that title or not. Now you are one of, if not the most powerful media personalities in Moto, and it's because of something you built all on your own. And that's what we'll dive into today. So,
Sure. Yeah.
You've told the story a bunch. Everybody knows this, that you were a factory mechanic and then did some stuff with Racerx and then started to build Pulp. But for anybody that might be new and this is the first time they're really hearing your backstory, I guess quickly take us through that. When was it that you decided, man, I don't want to spin wrenches anymore. I really want to start doing media. And then when did it go from just stuff for Racerx and other media outlets to I want to build my own thing?
Yeah, it's kind of a cool story. It's a little bit of betting on yourself, and it actually paid off, which is doesn't always happen. But I do tell people, like, look, if you want to change your career path, you want to change what you're doing, bet on yourself, do what you want, dig for your passion, and if it doesn't work out, at least you can say, hey, I gave it my shot while you're working at Circle K in the midnight shift. You know what I mean? Instead of just sitting there on the midnight shift at Circle K and wishing you could do something. Yeah, mechanic for a long time. But one thing, like, I was a mechanic for 12 years, and one thing that I think I was doing a little differently was I've always been a big reader, right? So I read books, I read magazines, I was deep into the moto media. I grew up reading all this stuff. And I find that a lot of mechanics / suspension guys who work with their hands in the pits aren't like that. They're, there's artists and then there's laborers and that type of people. And I always found myself a little different than a lot of mechanics in that I knew what was going on in the sport and I read a lot and I was all up on kind of the media of the sport. So I find that right away as a mechanic, I was a little bit different than a lot of guys I talked to. Not everybody, but a lot of guys. So I was writing press releases, fake press releases for KTM when I was there and sending them internally to everybody at KTM about Kelly Smith and I doing the 4-stroke nationals. And I was exaggerating them, and I was writing these long things about, the hills of Budds Creek were alive with the sound of 4 strokes, and 2 men, Steve Matthes and Kelly Smith, conquered the field, blah, blah, blah. And so everyone loved that kind of stuff. I was just doing it to get laughs out of my fellow coworkers. But that goes to show you that early on, I was still writing things. I was still into that kind of stuff. Then I worked for Nick Way in 2002. He had a website. I was writing blogs on there about my week in a box van and who I saw, what I did, and the races and things like that. So that's a short way of saying, like, even though I was a mechanic, I was always into sort of writing and knowing what was going on. And then I was tired at Yamaha. I was working for my buddy, Tim Ferry. He got let go. Yamaha was like, hey, we want to keep you, but we're going to put you with Heath Voss. Nothing against Heath Voss, but I was not excited to be a factory mechanic for Heath Voss. Right. I was tired of the repetition of building motors and testing, and God bless mechanics. They are the hardest working people in the sport. And I was just nose to the grindstone. So I was like, screw it. I don't want to do this anymore. I did at that time reach out to Davey at Racerx. I reached out to Don at Transworld and said, hey, do you have any part-time contributor stuff? Nobody had anything. No one really knew what I could do. So I took a job with Parts Unlimited. And somewhere in that time, I was working for Parts Unlimited. And my buddies, they're not my buddies, but I met the guys from Racerx Canada. And obviously they were doing Racerx Canada with the blessing of the folks in Morgantown there. And I got to know those guys. And I said, hey, can I contribute? Can I write? And they were pretty desperate for content. So I started writing some things for them. It was catching on a little bit. And soon enough, Davey's like, hey, we want to take you. And I'm like, but you had your chance. But anyways, funny story there. He basically just took me from Racerx Canada, and I started doing stuff for Racerx in the USA. And around the Racerx Canada days, I was listening to podcasts. This is 2008, 2007. I was listening to podcasts, and I was like, man, these are pretty fun to listen to. I would love if there was one of these for Moto. Now, the DMXS guys were doing their show, but it wasn't, and they were putting it up as a podcast, but it wasn't really what I was thinking, which is long-form, one-on-one podcast interviews with the greats of the sport. They would have Hannah on once in a while or Jeff Ward, but it was only 10 minutes, and it was more focused on what was going on current day than their careers. So I literally bought the book Podcasting for Dummies. You can get anything for dummies book series on Amazon. And I dove into it. And My first podcast stuff was probably, I don't know, 40, $50 of equipment and then a laptop. And I was literally using like a Radio Shack thing between a corded phone and my laptop and calling dudes up and started a podcast. And that was on Racerx Canada. And Shift Canada came on board as a sponsor, the first sponsor we had. And I wasn't making any money.
At that time when you were doing that though, Steve, I think it's important for people to understand it wasn't the same Steve Matthes back then as it is today, that literally everybody knows who you are. And unless there's beef, most people are going to pick the phone up when you call. Back then, I assume some people knew who you were because of your mechanic days, and some people knew who you were because you're riding. But what was that like as far as trying to get people you wanted to come on? Did you know the people that you had come on?
Yeah, I honestly knew most of them. I'd met the older guys in my time as a mechanic, and Rick Johnson was one guy I'd never met, and I did struggle to get him for a long time because he didn't know me or didn't know who I was or didn't care. Eventually, my buddy Lou Lopez knew him well and put us together. But most of the guests, my first ever podcast guest was Chad Reed, because I was on Team Yamaha with him. I knew that people would be interested in him, and he gave me some time on the phone. So, yeah, a lot of the guys, I'd say 85% of the guys I first talked to were just my buddies, people that I knew, people that I had to explain. It's a recorded phone interview, but it'll be like your voice. I'm not typing this out. And I remember that, if you say, podcast today, everybody's like, oh yeah, cool, whatever. But back then I had to really explain what a podcast was. And I remember getting over 1,000 listeners pretty much right away and being pretty stoked on 1,000 people listening. So that's kind of how I get started. Yeah, absolutely. And then smash cut, I was working for Racerx. Everything was going well. I kind of had a couple of side jobs, but the Racerx thing was something I wanted to do full time, but the money wasn't there full time, but I was trying to do it. And then honestly, the big shot for me starting my own thing was Racerx let me go. They were starting the nationals. They needed budget or whatever. Things weren't working out great. They called me up. Brian Staley called me up and said, hey, we love what you're doing, but we can't commit to paying you next year. And I said, what do you mean? You thought you love what I'm doing? He's like, yeah, but just, budget cuts and whatever. We'll pay you per article. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, I can't live on that. I need a guarantee. And he was like, I can't give it to you. Sorry. And so I reached out to my buddy Don Maeda at Transworld. He picked me up. But at the same time as that, it was a big wake-up call to where I was like, wait a minute. I'm doing great stuff. Mm-hmm. Everybody likes it. I'm working hard. And I still got let go. So I was like, kind of like, okay, well, that can't happen to me again. I can't. And this had come on the heels of Parts Unlimited letting me go too, for no reason other than budget. I was a brand manager for FMF and Parts Unlimited, and it's a 50-50 co-pay, and FMF decided not to do it. So Parts Unlimited said, hey, you're out of a job. So I had that happen to me for no reason. I thought I was doing well and they liked me. And then I had the Racerx thing happen for no reason. And I'm like, okay, that's enough. I'm going to start my own thing, blog site, podcasting, whatever it is. And then at least I'll be in control of that. And I'll have somewhere for people to go to get content. And hopefully I can get advertisers.
Yeah. When did it start to take off for you to where you, and I'm sure people know your wife from the show, but I'm sure there was that moment to where you and your wife were like, holy shit, this is actually starting to become a thing in and of itself that could be what supports us moving forward, more so than me freelancing and this being on the side. Was there a point that you can think back to where it was like that tipping point that, hey, it's really getting hot now?
Not really. I do know that.
Slow
I do know that at one point, before I went to Transworld and I was at Racerx, and I was working for a company called Merge Racing in Texas after the Parts Unlimited thing. And I was repping their kind of performance modification things and going to the races and that kind of stuff. And again, you want to talk about getting screwed over, which in our industry does happen. I had a year contract, and after 6 months, the owner, who was a multimillionaire, just said, hey, man, this isn't working out. We're not selling as much as I thought. And I said, okay, what can we do? And he was like, yeah, well, nothing. You're done. And I'm like, but I have a year contract. And he was like, yeah, well, see you in court, I guess. So I was out of work after 6 months. But I knew that the podcasting and the writing was gathering momentum. So I started going to the races to cover them as a freelance guy. I think I was getting $30,000 retainer from Racerx a year, and I had no other job. But to cover the races, you had to be at the races. That was a big thing with me. You can't just watch them on TV and hope to cover them as well. So I started going to the races. Well, Luke, as you know, that's pretty expensive. And I remember at one point, I want to say 08, 09, somewhere around there, my American Express bill was up to $27,000 or something. And the minimum payment was like $1,000 a month. Never mind to pay off. That was just interest, and you're not touching the principal. And my wife and I are like, oh shit. But I'm like, look, we're all in. We're making this work. And yes, it's expensive because I'm flying and renting cars and staying in hotels, but I'm making it work. We're going to do this. And sure enough, it all worked out in the end. But yeah, some scary times. It wasn't like right away. It wasn't just like, oh shit, yeah, we're rolling along.
Yeah, it's funny because obviously I knew you probably had similar stories, and then I learned a bunch about JT as far as like his transition from an athlete to a professional, and just so many of those things that I can relate to where when my partner and I started this business, I always wanted to be in the moto space, but we literally were working with anybody that had a heartbeat and a wallet. And I had racked up about $30,000 to $35,000 in debt on credit cards. My business partner did the same thing. I was living in my office, and I met my now wife at the time, who had no idea. She thought I was a baller because everybody thinks entrepreneurs are ballers, and they're not. And little did she know I was technically homeless and in debt. So I can completely relate to that. To where, and then there's got to be that point that it flips, and you're like, okay, I can make this work. Was it really when you started to was it doubling down on sponsors and advertisers on the show? Because obviously that's how the show makes money for itself, and you have Marks and these guys. Was it that when people started to see, hey, there's a lot of people listening to Steve's show, and then you started to go out and grab those sponsors, that the tide started to turn?
Yeah, basically started getting, I was at Transworld for a year, I think for $30,000 or $40,000. It kind of matched the Racerx offer. And then at the end of that year, Racerx called me back. They had made some changes, and they wanted me to come back on and more of a full-time role. And so I got a little bump in salary there. And so now I was semi-legitimate salary. And then right around that time, I started the PulpMX show. So the podcasting was the Steve Matthes show. That was going okay. I was getting some money from that. And then I started the PulpMX show, which was like a morning radio, Howard Stern type of look, live. We took callers, which is something that we never did. But I invested $5,000 or $6,000 in equipment for that, $700 a month for phone lines. But I really, again, invested it in myself because I saw this idea working. But around the same time, Luke, I started a website called Pro Moto Talk, where I was kind of ripping off Pro Football Weekly, which is reposting press releases and news from the industry, and then offering up editorial at the news of whatever that day was. I had hired a guy to kind of post stuff for me, and that failed. That didn't work. That never got traction. So it's not like I just been this meteoric. How do you say it? Like meteoric? Yeah, meteoric. Thank you. Meteoric rise. The Pro Moto Talk thing failed on me. So different things. Pro hockey or pulp hockey later on failed. So you got to push yourself out there and try, and not everything's going to work. But the Pulp Show started working. Myself and Paul Lindsay started it, an industry guy. We didn't quite see eye to eye on the nature of the show. He departed 6 or 7 shows in. Kenny Watson came in, but we still didn't have any money. Well, our commitment, we had a year-long commitment from an online retailer, and they pulled out after 4 shows.
Yeah, I just mentioned that on a show, and I wanted to talk about that, to where you had even mentioned, like, really you guys are stopping after a brand new show. What was that like, and how did you guys transition after that? Because you probably were projecting out like, hey, we're good for this long, and all of a sudden it's not there anymore.
Well, I was making the payments on the damn equipment, Luke, and they're still this equipment was still new. Yeah. But yeah, you go to somebody with a business proposal. It's sort of a friend of mine, and you say like, hey, here's what we want to do. Here's what the price is for a year. Here's what I think will happen. And they go, yes. And then, 4 or 5 shows in, they pull the plug.
Yeah.
You're just like, what? Like not even 6 months? You're not going to give us 6 months to try to get this thing off the line? So really, like, we were struggling for money because the show was costing about $1,000 a month. The PulpMX show was costing about $1,000 a month to operate. And we were pulling in, when they left, we were pulling in, I don't know, $200, $300.
Mm-hmm.
So things were looking a little bleak, but my buddy Watson made some phone calls. We got JGR on board. We got another little shop called TRE in Simi Valley, California on board. And we got enough money for 6 months or 7 months of, not us taking any money, but us just paying the expenses. And that thing started to take off thanks to Kenny Watson. Is great. He's very unpredictable, very volatile, but he was awesome. And my humor, my idea of making a show like morning radio with gonzo calls and things like that started catching on. So that thing was a hit. A year into the Pulp show, so 2011, that was starting to be like a big thing. The Steve Matthes show, slowly growth, slow build on that, but the Pulp show sort of ramped up right away.
So, and I want to talk about your on-air, just your personality and how that has really set you apart from other people. But before that, as far as sponsors and whatnot with the show, it's on you to bring in the advertisers and do the renewals and the contract extensions and do all of that. And that's kind of my role at my company. I work with my sales team. So I understand that and have appreciation. I understand how much time, and that's the lifeblood of a company. Was that something that was hard for you to learn? Because it is a skill. Did you pick up a lot of stuff from Kenny, or did they really just come walking to you? I'm sure maybe more now than before. Was it just you had to pick and choose who you wanted to work with because you had options, or what did that look like early on, and what does it look like today?
Well, yeah, nowadays people are coming to me. It's funny. I've been in the industry for so long that a lot of the people that I grew up with in the late 90s and early 2000s are now in charge of companies' marketing. Yeah. We're all adults now. Like, it's really weird, but we're like super adults. So these are my friends that are running the marketings of companies like JT or Parabinos or Charles Caslew or John Knowles or Rich Taylor. Rich Taylor owns X Brand. But it's easier, obviously, when you have that personal relationship. You have to deliver, which we do, but it is easier to get your foot in the door and have that conversation when you know the person for 15 years or 20 years, right? And so that helps me a lot. Early on, though, I was saying this on another podcast, like, that does, as you know, it takes up a lot of your time. Like, my buddy Don Maeda started Swap Moto Live when the Transworld thing folded, and he was just like, I can't do this. Mm-hmm. He hired a guy to approach companies and bill them and propose them and sell them and all of that. And he's just like, I don't have the time. And I respect that. But to me, I would like to pawn that off on somebody else. However, it's the relationships that helps me get the deals done. It's me saying, look, man, I know you're not on board totally. Give me 6 months. Hey, man, check this social engagement out. Hey, man, check these emails out. Check these positive reviews out. And, that's the kind of thing that allows you to keep the relationship going. Yeah. And the person who's in control of the marketing dollars feels like they have a direct handle with me, the guy that's producing the content. So it is a blessing and a curse that I'm this one-man show,
Yeah, no, I can understand that completely. And with that, I mean, you have the show, and now I would say I've noticed it more in the last 3, maybe even more years than that. But like this year for sure, it's almost like there's Pulp, and then there's Steve Matthes, the influencer, to where you've got brands like Intense that want to attach themselves with you because you're into the whole e-biking scene, which we'll talk about later, as am I. What was that something new that you had to start figuring out? How do I separate Steve Matthes, the influencer, and do you work with brands exclusively through your own personal content, and then Steve Matthes, the guy that runs Pulp, and look, we're going to work you into the shows? Or is it all really just kind of one and you mix them?
Yeah, it's all the same. And we have Pro Taper and Renthal and Vortex, we have Pro Circuit and FMF on different shows, FXR and Fly. Those companies all kind of get it, you know what I mean? And they understand that I can't be exclusive. I've said to some of those guys, hey, if you want to be exclusive, here's what you can. You can be across all the shows. You know what I mean? I'll talk to them a little bit about that. But most of these companies don't have the wherewithal to do that. The Yamaha and Intense thing are a bit different. It's more the influencer, like you said, for those brands. Both of those brands have been like, look, man, we don't want a banner ad. We don't even need a mention. We don't need a read on your shows. Can you just take our product and use it? Mm-hmm. You know, that's really what we want you to do. And it did take me a little bit to wrap my head around that, because they're both paying cash money as well as product to me to represent these brands. So that was a little weird to get used to, Luke, early on, where I'm like, me? Influencer? What? Huh? That's weird. But yeah. I mean, obviously, like, I'm going to be, you know, my social, I don't have a Steve Matthes Instagram and Twitter and a PulpMX one. It's just me. Right. That's it. And I swear on my stuff. You know, I drop the F-bombs if I want. I'll tell people to F off. And it is what you get with me. There's no dividing of that. And that is both good and bad, but in my eyes, more good than bad. I've had that conversation with people where I'm like, hey, should I get a Steve Matthes tag? And that's my personal thing, and PulpMX is everything. But in the end, man, it's been 10 years of this PulpMX thing. It is me, right? People know that. Right. So, but the Yamaha and the e-bike stuff are the two brands that are like, yes, on board with paying me cash and using me as influence, and they don't want anything from me other than that kind of stuff. That's a cool. Weird world we're in now for me. I mean, I'm 45 years old.
Talk about
that's weird. Right yeah, it's really strange. But, you know, the feedback I got from the Intense guys are, I mean, I had somebody at Intense tell me that I could charge them double and they would still be happy, which noted, by the way, noted.
It's right. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, honestly, it's just stuff that I use every day. I love riding my dirt bike. I like riding my dirt bike. I love riding my e-bike. Keeper's going to hate that.
Well, I mean, so it's effective because I mean, I've been in moto since I was a kid. I never raced. Like, I always grew up racing BMX, and now I have an e-bike team and I race e-bikes. But I always grew up just riding motorcycles. When I started my business in 2012, there was a big gap to where I sold my bike. I didn't ride. I got really fat, really out of shape. And in 2018, I got back into it all. And we started doing a lot of work in the moto space, and I started to get active in it again. And it was you and Kiefer. I was listening to your shows, and I think you probably just started working with Yamaha, or it was the shootouts, whatever it was. Your content, I was like, I want a Yamaha. And that's what I went out and got a 2019 YZ450 because of that. We have a relationship with Specialized for their e-bikes, but we go to the GNCCs, and we have a team, and we're doing the e-bike things, and Randy Richardson came up and introduced himself to me, and he was on a Specialized, but his friend was on a Taser, and his friend was
Robbie. That's my guy, Robbie.
Yeah,
I like him better than Randy, for the record. He's Taser Army. So
I mean, these people are getting into what I'm getting at is I got back into moto, and I was on a Yamaha because of your influence. People are getting into e-bikes, and they're choosing the brand, whether it's one day it's somebody else. It's whatever you're on. It's just weird how that people are like, ooh, I know this guy. I trust him. I've never talked to him a day in my life, but this is what he rides, so I want it. And
it is strange, right? It is strange. I think that's authentic from us on the podcast and the shows. Yeah. And if you're a listener, you know, like, we're not trying to blow smoke up anybody's ass. Kiefer lives and dies with this stuff, right? And he just offers up an opinion, as do I. You know, I take people out on the e-bikes for the first time, and they come on the show and they want to talk about it. So I think as long as you're authentic, and I think Yamaha and Intense and these other companies see that, then that's all you can ask for, right? That's all you can be. Just don't be fake, or, you know, that kind of stuff. So it's crazy to me that it's worked. Yeah.
Is it weird to you that guys like you and Kiefer probably move? Actually, I would say I would almost guarantee you and Kiefer, and there's probably some others out there that are not racers, that are not professional level athletes, that are just business guys. You move more, we'll even go with Yamahas, than
a Justin Barcia or Aaron Plessinger just because people, yes, they see them race, and whether the results are great right now or not, you guys are doing more for the brand as far as moving bikes, because I did not buy a Yamaha because I wanted to get one because of Plessinger or Barcia. I got a Yamaha because of what you and Kiefer said. To me, it's a weird world that we live in now that you guys are moving more product than professional athletes. Do you agree with that?
I don't know if we are or not, but I do agree that it works, right? I do agree that giving a dirt bike, and I got to give it back, but giving a dirt bike to a 45-year-old tubby vet guy who has got a platform does seem to work. Yeah. But I mean, again, I think you got to be authentic. Like I had the Suzuki for a while and it was okay. It was fun to ride. It was nothing wrong with it. But honestly, when I got on the Yamaha, and you have one, it's an amazing bike. The motor's amazing. It's easy to ride. Suspension is great. So I was having fun riding my dirt bike, and I think that was coming through on the shows, right? That was coming through authentically, that this is a really good dirt bike, which it is. And I think that that's part of it too. Like, you got to make a good product. You got to have a good product first and foremost. I think people can. I had a brand that that was a sponsor of the show, one of my shows. Product wasn't very good. The quality wasn't very good. They came on, they said, "Hey, we want to advertise with you." I said, "No problem. Let's do this." They gave me some product. They gave me some money. They no longer are on the shows, but the product itself wasn't that good. And I think you could hear that when I was talking about it. Like it just was lower end stuff. So I think whatever it is, whether it's an e-bike or a dirt bike or a chain and sprockets, if it's a good quality, we're going to talk about it, and you're going to hear the enthusiasm, and it's going to be, I'm going to use that word again, authentic to the listeners.
Yeah. So as we kind of wrap up, a couple, final things. One thing I want to bring up is your personality is what brings people back time and time again. You're going to say what it is. And I think a lot of times you've said stuff knowing that you're probably going to get backlash, whether it be from your employers or fans or industry people or riders, and you don't care. You say it because whether it's a blessing or a curse, you always speak the truth. And you just mentioned it. The product wasn't that great. I didn't just spin a bunch of bullshit because they're paying me money. I was authentic about it. I think that is a personality that this sport people crave and they want. And it's the Stephen A. Smith of traditional stick and ball sports. That's why people like him, because they know what they're going to get, and it's real and it's authentic. Is that something that you have to turn on and off? Because even on this interview, your vibe is a little bit different, but when you get really going and you're passionate about something, you don't hold back because you're afraid you might offend somebody, even if it's the person you're talking to on the call. Is that something that you had to practice, or is it just, man, that's who I've been since I was a kid? Or did you know the sport needed that and you wanted to develop that skill set?
No, it's honestly the way I am as a guy. I think if you ask, I've known JT for 20 years, right? I think if you ask JT what I was like as a mechanic, he'd be like, yeah, he was stubborn, he was opinionated, he was a loudmouth back then. I just, I hate the spin, right? I hate the cover up. I hate the spin. I hate the let's just call a spade, and if it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. Things can get better. People can improve, whatever it is. But let's be honest here. Let's cover the sport like a real sport, and there's not always good things happening. There's sometimes bad things. And honestly, I mean, Davey has called me and ripped me a new one at times for things that I've written or said, and I've gone back at him. Other times I'll be like, Davey, you're right. Like, you're right. That I went too far there. Just yesterday on Twitter, I was going on about Team USA at the Motocross the Nations. I mean, and I was getting some heat from it from some of my followers, but I don't care. Mm-hmm. I believe strongly in my stance. I will back it up. I will prove it. I will prove it in the sense of I will offer up counterpoints and why I think that. And you may think I'm crazy. You may think it's dumb, but at least you can respect that I have an opinion and it's somewhat educated, right? Yeah. It's somewhat knowledgeable. Am I right all the time? Hell no. Sometimes I'm way off. And all that evidence is out there in the podcast world. I'll be the first one to be like, wow, I was wrong. I really missed that one. Or, hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I said this. But I think, again, Luke, it just boils down to, like, people want authenticity. They want the real stuff, good and bad. And you know, I've had plenty of people in the pits tell me, like, you know, you're just, just a hater, just a shit talker, whatever. And I always just say to those guys, yeah, well, every time we add up our numbers, our listeners are growing. So too bad for you, I guess. Too bad that you don't like it, because guess what? A lot of people do. And so whatever we're doing, and it's not just me, it's JT and Kiefer and Daniel Blair and Wygant and all these other people that come on. Whatever we're doing is working, because we grow in listeners all the time. And there's 8 million moto podcasts out there now. And God bless all of them. Everybody's doing a good job, yourself included, like trying to find a niche and find a way to cover the sport. But we haven't been hit by these guys. Our numbers haven't taken hits. We're just growing along with the rest of them. So, it's awesome. And so, Luke, sometimes it gets me down. Sometimes it gets me frustrated sometimes, because, like the whole Bobby Hewitt thing, like, he was gone. And I got a tip that he was gone. And I talked to a couple of people and they confirmed that he was gone. Well, guess what? The president of Husqvarna was out there talking and saying, Matthes is wrong. Well, Matthes is wrong. Bobby Hewitt's here. This is what I heard anyways. And he was gone. And just things like that where you're like, come on, man. Like, I get that you can't talk about it. I get that it's sensitive information, but don't lie.
Right.
Don't lie. We don't need to do that. So,
So you've last thing, and I've been curious to get your take on this, because we've seen, I think JGR is probably the best example. Whatever has gone on inside of that organization where they've struggled to get title sponsors or sponsors in general, I don't think it's just the JGR thing. I feel like so many race teams are approaching brands the same way they did in the early 2000s and even mid 2000s, with essentially, here's what you're going to get. You can, you're affiliated with us. Your logo is going to be here, here, and here, but they don't take into account what brands are looking for. I mean, our clients hire and fire us based off of how much revenue we're generating for them. If your show isn't moving product, if your codes aren't getting reaction, you're probably not going to have that sponsor. And I've started to, when I put together this e-bike team, which it is what it is, it's small, it's got 6 people, it's got 1 pro, it's meant to be fun. But I've taken what I've learned from marketing and what I think brands are going to want, and I feel like I've got a better package than a lot of pro teams, to where when I'm going to a brand, we'll just make one up. Say it's Fly. I'm going to them saying, look, we want you to be affiliated with the team. Here's what you're going to get as far as social reach. Here's what our video series is getting. You can be affiliated with our podcast. You get this type of engagement online. Our goal is to drive this type of traffic for you. And also, we're going to place your logos here, and this is what you're going to get from us at the races. And here, by the way, event activation at the races, this is what it looks like. Do you think that teams are just doing it wrong from the standpoint of what type of value Dodge is going to get when they affiliate themselves with this race team beyond just having their logo? Like Troll Train, it's a great example. Troll Train Vlog, right? I feel like that should be something that could and should be sold to the sponsors, that, look, Alex is going to feature you in his video. His videos get 20, 30, 40,000 views every time. And I feel like those things aren't being leveraged when going to get a sponsor. Do you have an opinion on that, or what are your thoughts on how teams are approaching sponsors now?
Well, I don't really have a lot of insight in that, because I'm not on the inside of these meetings. I do know I've talked to David Evans at JGR, and they sound like they're doing it right. They're trying to leverage the NASCAR thing. They're trying to leverage, like, hey, look, we're in bed with FedEx. Let's take all your shipping. If you make widgets, and we're trying to get a widget deal for the motocross team, let's take your widget company, introduce you to FedEx. They'll cut you a rate. David Evans at JGR sounds like he's done everything he can do to try to use the sponsors of the NASCAR team, the sponsors of the motocross team, get them together, activate with both of them, and all of that. Now, he's run into problems because there's conflicting stuff, obviously, with Toyota and with JGR, NASCAR, and all that. But they sound like they're trying to do it right, but it hasn't worked. So as far as the other teams, well, I mean, outside of energy drinks, what do we got? We got online guys We got energy drinks, and what do we got? That's about it. I'm really desperately trying to think right now.
Yeah.
So I think
and CBD, that might be a little bit different in the coming years, but I feel like CBD is still not wide open, and it might come and go in 2 years. It might be a fad. Who knows?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think CBD is where it needs to be. But I don't understand when you look at our TV, and I've said this is a race tech rant, Luke, you've heard this before. When you look at our TV numbers, you look at what you can get for $1 million, basically almost any team owner out there will kill for you and bury the body for $1 million for his race team. And they can't get it. They can't make it work, right? It's tough. I turn around and I look at promoters. I look at MX Sports and I look at Feld and their restrictions and their things that they're doing. Now they're a for-profit business, so I get it. I understand that. But to me, the fact that we don't have a Taco Bell or a Verizon for as little money as those guys need to rip off to appeal to 20 to 40-year-old males, which is a great demo, live TV, rolling billboards in the terms of semis and all of that, and we don't have some of that in our industry is mind-blowing to me. And I think we need to look at it as an industry and as a sport and be like, what are we doing? Why can't we get these guys? And we once had Wrangler jeans. We once had Coors Light. We once had Camel cigarettes. These are massive companies. And none of these Fortune 500 companies, well, outside of the energy drinks, which were started in Moto, deem our sport, my sport, your sport, people watching this sport, they deem our sport not good enough to jump into. We got a fundamental problem, because to me, it doesn't take a lot of money. You get signage on the semis, you get live TV. It's probably Supercross is probably the third biggest motorsport in America. It's bigger than IndyCar. Yeah. You go to IndyCar, they got Verizon, they got all these guys, right? We don't have any of those people. Now, obviously, enthusiasts of IndyCar, it's a different clientele. But we need to look in the mirror, I think, as a sport, and the promoters need to look in the mirror and be like, why can't we get some of that? Because we are a big sport in relative sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I wish there was a secret sauce that somebody had, because, I mean, we all know and love the sport, and it blows my mind that, you can't even get a Mountain Dew or a beer company or something like that.
And dude, it's not a lot of money. We have ratings. We have a live TV package. I just look at sports that are smaller than us, look at their title sponsors. I'm looking at IndyCar and be like, why can't we have that?
Yeah. No doubt.
I understand the signage of a dirt bike is small compared to a car going around a circle or a road course. I get that, but still, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I think it was interesting with how Supercross, when they came back, a couple of things. I think somebody might have brought it up on your show, or maybe it was in one of Ouija's videos, but how they had to go so far out because of social distancing on the podium interviews. It was the first time I've ever actually seen every logo on the racer's bike and jersey, and I feel like those are some things that maybe they should keep so that they can leverage that as a selling point moving forward.
Why didn't Dodge stick around? Why didn't Jimmy John stick around? Why do these guys come in, look around, and bolt? I know a lot of it's personal relationship and things change at companies and all that, but still, we got a problem where we can't seem to get anybody other than the sugar water guys and the endemic industry guys to really sponsor our race series. What's going on? What's happening? I don't know.
I agree. Well, Steve, I appreciate you being on the show. Everybody knows where to find you. Be sure to listen to the Pulp Show and everything else you're doing. You've got so many awesome shows that I even told JT, I don't play fantasy, but I listen to every show because of it's where these privateers get brought up. And I don't know if I can't be the only guy, but I religiously listen to every fantasy pod, and I don't even play fantasy. I need to change that next year, I know. But I appreciate what you've done. I've learned a lot about the sport. Being a fan, I still learn about the sport through your content. It's something that I look forward to every week and have a lot of respect for what you've built over the years. And I appreciate you jumping on the show today.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Good luck with everything. And that's the ultimate compliment that you can give me, any listener. I've learned a lot from your shows. That's perfect. Great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's
Sure.
that's what we want to do. And it's awesome to expose guys like Filthy Phil there. You got a jersey in the background, or a Deuce Deuce, or a A-Ray, or any of these guys that, you know, are cool characters, and they're part of our sport, and then they make the thing churn. And I love the fact that, you know, people say, like, I love these guys through you. I love these guys because of the things that you've brought us. That's the ultimate compliment for me.
Absolutely, man. Well, we appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Thank you for listening to the Moto Marketing Podcast. If your goal is to get real, measurable results from your marketing that will grow your company revenue, then check out how Impakt Media can get the same results that they have for Moto's most iconic brands by visiting thinkimpakt.com. That's THINKIMPAKT.com. Have a marketing question that you want answered on the show? Send your questions to questions@motomarketingpodcast.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast.